The millionaire, a widower for 20 years, stopped in the middle of the hall. Suddenly he faced the cleaning lady and went straight towards her. Everyone thought he had gone crazy, but then he said, "You have the same eyes as the woman I loved." If this story interests you, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and tell us from which city you are watching us. We continue. On the top floor of the Aurora building, one of the most impressive buildings in the capital, Adrian Mueller looked out at the city that stretched out at his feet through the large glass windows. At 58 years old, he owned one of the largest real estate development companies in the country, with projects spread all over the country. The 400-square-meter apartment was decorated with expensive works of art, designer furniture, and all the luxuries that his fortune could buy. But none of that mattered. Not anymore. 20 years had passed since Helena had left. 20 years of emptiness that no amount of wealth could fill. The wall clock, a French antique that she loved so much, struck 8 in the morning with the same relentless precision as always, reminding him that another day was beginning. Another day without her. Adrian adjusted his silk robe and walked to the kitchen, where Donna Clara, the housekeeper who had worked for him for more than 2 decades, had already prepared his breakfast. "Good morning, Mr. Adrian. Did you sleep well?" The question was just a formality. They both knew that their nights were populated by the same old ghosts. Adrian forced a polite smile. "As always, Clara. As always." The housekeeper nodded understandingly. She knew the man well, knew the pain he carried. Helena and Adrian had been a perfect couple until the accident that took her away forever. Since then, he had closed himself off in his fortress of concrete and glass, limiting his life to business meetings and occasional dinners with the few friends he still had. "Raphael called last night after you went to bed. He asked me to call you back as soon as possible." Raphael Vogel was his oldest partner and friend. They had been together since the founding of Muller Developments 30 years ago. He was one of the few who still managed to pull Adrian out of his seclusion from time to time. "Thank you, Clara. I'll call him later." After breakfast, Adrian dressed in his customary tailored suit. It didn't matter that he had no outside commitments that day. Routine and formality were anchors that kept him going. He sat in his office, a large room overlooking Park Central, and began reviewing the reports his assistant had left the day before. At 10 o'clock, he was interrupted by an unusual movement in the hallway. Different voices suppressed laughter. Adrian rarely heard laughter in that apartment. Intrigued, he got up and walked to the door. That's when he saw her for the first time. She had her back turned, talking to Donna Clara. Her black hair was tied in a simple bun, and she was wearing the condominium's grey uniform. Her voice had a different cadence, a soft accent that stood out in the formality of the environment. "Then you let me know when his meeting is over, and I'll come back. Can't clean the office. I don't want to get in the way." "Don't worry, Yara. Dr. Adrian should stay in there all morning." Hearing his name, Adrian cleared his throat slightly. The two women turned. Yara's eyes, a deep, vivid brown, met his. For a brief moment, Adrian felt something he couldn't name. A jolt, perhaps, as if something dormant inside him had been touched. "Dr. Adrian, this is Yara Sorrell, the new employee of the condominium's cleaning team. She will take care of the apartment on Mondays and Wednesdays to help me." Yara gave a genuine smile and extended her hand. "Nice to meet you, Doctor. Sorry for any inconvenience." His hand was small, his fingers calloused from hard work, but his grip was firm, confident. "The pleasure is mine. Make yourself at home." Adrian returned to his office, trying to ignore the strange feeling that brief encounter had provoked. He focused on the numbers in front of him, but his mind insisted on returning to that smile, to the liveliness of those eyes that contrasted with the grey atmosphere that had surrounded him for so long. Around noon, Raphael showed up unannounced, as he usually did. "Clara let me in. You didn't return my call." Raphael Vogel, 60 years old, with perfectly trimmed grey hair and the same air of confidence as always, sat down in the armchair in front of Adrian's desk, without waiting for an invitation, and I was busy. "What happened?" "The Armand Group wants to renegotiate the terms of the resort contract. I think we should accept. The new terms are not bad." Adrian frowned. The Almond Group was known for its aggressive tactics. I will analyze the documents and give you an answer tomorrow. Raphael nodded but made no move to leave. His eyes scanned the office until they settled on a photograph on the bookshelf. Helena and Adrian smiling on a beach. 20 years, Adrian. Don't you think it's time to move on? It was dangerous territory, and Raphael knew it, but he was one of the few who could broach the subject, without being immediately rebuffed. Don't start that again. I'm serious. You're 58 years old, have a fortune and are in good health, and you spend your days holed up in this mausoleum. Adrian stared at his friend coldly. I appreciate your concern, but my personal life is not on the agenda. Raphael sighed, standing up. Whatever you say. Dinner on Thursday? That new restaurant? I'll check my schedule. After Raphael left, Adrian focused on his work again, but his mind was restless. His friend's words had touched a wound that had always been open. Moving on, as if it were that simple. At the end of the afternoon, when he was getting ready to end the day, he heard a soft knock on the door. It was Yara. Excuse me, doctor. Can I clean the office now? There was something different about her. It wasn't just her simple, unadorned beauty, but an energy that seemed to light up the room. Adrian found himself watching her movements as she organized her papers, the way she hummed softly as she worked, completely absorbed. What song is that? He asked, surprising himself with his interest. Yara stopped, looking embarrassed. Oh, sorry. I didn't even realize I was singing. No, don't apologize. I was just curious. I didn't recognize the melody. A faint blush colored her cheeks. It's a composition of mine. Nothing important. Just a little something I'm working on. Do you compose? The question seemed to catch her by surprise. Yara hesitated for a moment before answering. It's just a hobby. When I have some spare time, I like to write songs. There was something in her tone, a mixture of pride and shyness, that intrigued Adrian. He wanted to ask more, but felt that it would be invading too personal territory for this first contact. Well, I won't disturb your work. Have a good night, Yara. Good evening, Dr. Adrian. That night, for the first time in a long time, Adrian went to sleep with something other than the usual feeling of emptiness. A curiosity, perhaps. A small awakening of interest in the world beyond the walls of his penthouse. And although he couldn't explain it, the melody that Yara hummed accompanied him in his dreams, driving away for a few hours the ghosts that had haunted him for so long. Over the next few weeks, Adrian began adjusting his routine to be home on Mondays and Wednesdays. He told himself it was just a coincidence, that he had more work to do around the house on those days, but deep down he knew he looked forward to the moments when Yara would show up with her cleaning cart and her warm smile. On a particularly sunny Wednesday, while reviewing some contracts in his office, Adrian heard that melody again. Yara was cleaning the living room, and her soft voice floated down the hallway. Without thinking much, he got up and walked silently to the door, just to listen better. The song spoke of longing, of dreams postponed and hopes that persisted despite hardships. There was a depth in those simple words that touched him in a way he hadn't felt in years. When it finished, Adrian couldn't help but applaud. Yara turned around startled, her face blushing intensely. Dr. Adrian, I'm sorry. I didn't realize. I was disturbing you. It wasn't bothering me at all. Your voice is very pretty. The compliment seemed inadequate, insufficient to express what that song had awakened in him. Yara lowered her eyes, visibly embarrassed. Thank you, it's just a joke. It doesn't seem like a joke. You have talent. Something about his sincere tone seemed to relax her a little. She adjusted her uniform, a nervous gesture. I've always liked music. My grandmother used to sing all day while she worked in the fields. I think I inherited that from her. I came to the capital 15 years ago in search of opportunity. There was a story there. Adrian could feel it. A story of struggle and sacrifice that he, in his privileged bubble, could barely imagine. And found it? The question came out more direct than he intended. Yara stared at him with a mixture of surprise and assessment, as if deciding how much of herself to reveal. I found hard work that pays the bills. I'm still waiting for the real opportunity." At that moment, Donna Clara appeared, breaking the moment of connection. "Dr. Adrian, Mr. Raphael is on the line." With a nod to Iara, Adrian returned to his office. The conversation with Raphael was brief and tense. Problems with the land, environmental issues that had not been foreseen. Adrian hung up the phone feeling the familiar weight of responsibility on his shoulders. However, unlike usual, that weight did not consume him completely. In his mind, Iara's melody continued to echo like a gentle counterpoint to the worries of everyday life. The following Monday, when Iara arrived, Adrian surprised her with an invitation. "Iara, I need a break. Would you like a coffee on the terrace?" The proposal was completely out of her usual behavior, and both Iara and Donna Clara seemed equally shocked. After a moment of hesitation, Iara accepted. The rooftop terrace offered a panoramic view of the capital. On that winter morning, the sky was exceptionally clear, allowing one to see even the distant mountains that surrounded the city. Sitting at a small table with coffee and cookies served by a still perplexed Donna Clara, Adrian and Iara talked like they had never talked before. "My parents wanted me to study, to have a better life than theirs," Iara said, her eyes lost in the cityscape. "But when my father got sick, I had to leave school to help. After he left, my mother couldn't take care of my younger siblings alone. So I came to the capital to send them money." Adrian listened intently, noticing the stark contrast between their lives. "And the music, when did you start composing?" Iara's face lit up. "I've always written since I was little. Lyrics, poems. Music came later when I got a second-hand guitar from an old boss. I never had formal lessons, I taught myself. I would like to hear more of your compositions someday." The words were out before he could stop them. Iara looked at him with surprise, and then with something that seemed almost hope. "Would you really like it?" "Yes, I really would." That moment marked a subtle but significant change. In the days that followed, Adrian's apartment, previously silent as a mausoleum, began to fill with conversations. Iara, initially shy, gradually felt more comfortable sharing stories about her life, her family, and her dreams that had been kept in a drawer. One Wednesday, a month after that first coffee, on the terrace, Iara arrived with something hidden in her bag. When she finished cleaning the apartment, she found Adrian in his office. "Dr. Adrian, I brought something. You said you'd like to hear my songs." With slightly trembling hands, she took out a small portable stereo and a cassette tape from her bag. Adrian couldn't help but smile at the sight of the old-fashioned object. "I recorded a few songs. It's nothing professional. It's just what I can do in my little room with my old guitar." There was so much vulnerability in that gesture that Adrian felt something inside him break, an invisible barrier he had kept up for so long. "Let's listen." In the living room. The sound is better there. Sitting on the Italian leather sofa that had cost more than Iara made in a year, the two listened to the 9 songs recorded on the tape. Her voice, even in the poor recording, had a unique quality, honest, raw, moving. The lyrics spoke of love, loss, hope, and resilience. The simplicity of the arrangements only highlighted the beauty of the melodies. As the last note faded, Adrian remained silent for a few moments, absorbing what he had just heard. Iara watched him anxiously. "So? It turned out terrible, didn't it? I knew I shouldn't have shown it." "Iara," he interrupted her, "that's extraordinary." Her eyes widened in disbelief. "You are being kind." "No, I'm being honest. You have a gift." That night, after Iara left, Adrian stayed up late, mentally reviewing the songs he had heard. On impulse, he called his friend Carlo Denin, a music producer and owner of one of the largest recording studios in the capital. "Carlo, it's Adrian. I know it's late, but I need a favor." In the days that followed, Adrian found himself filled with an energy he hadn't felt in years. He made phone calls, scheduled meetings, researched the music industry, a world completely different from his own. There was a purpose to his movements now, something beyond mere survival from day to day. The following Monday, when Iara arrived for work, Adrian was waiting for her in the living room, with a proposal that would change their lives forever. "Iara, I want to help you record your songs professionally." Her reaction was one of absolute disbelief. "What, Dr. Adrian? That doesn't make sense. Why would you do that?" It was a valid question, and Adrian realized that even he didn't have a clear answer. Why was he doing this? Why did he care so much about the dreams of this woman he barely knew? "Because your talent deserves to be heard, and because—" He hesitated, searching for words for a feeling he was barely beginning to comprehend. "Because your music made me feel something I haven't felt in a long time." Chiara's eyes filled with tears. They were not tears of gratitude or excitement, but of confusion and even fear. "Dr. Adrian, I'm a cleaning lady. You. People will talk. And since when do I care what people say?" The truth was, he had always cared. His entire life had been built on appearances, on what was expected of a man in his position. But something was changing inside him, a slow, inexorable transformation triggered by his encounter with that woman with the sincere eyes and melodious voice. "Think about it," he said, seeing her hesitation. "You don't have to answer me now, but know that the offer stands." That evening, as Adrian ate dinner alone in his large dining room, the phone rang. It was Raphael, wanting to discuss a new project. During the conversation, Adrian casually mentioned his interest in helping a talented songwriter. "A composer. Since when have you been interested in music, Adrian?" "It's not so much about the music, but about her talent. It's something special." There was a moment of silence on the other end of the line. "Her, who exactly are we talking about?" "An acquaintance, Iara Sorrel." "And who is Iara Sorrel?" Adrian hesitated. How could he explain who Iara was to someone like Raphael? "She works on the condominium's cleaning team." Raphael's laugh was immediate and unpleasant. "A cleaning lady? You're kidding, right? What's next? Are you going to finance the doorkeeper's career as a dancer?" The comment hit Adrian like a slap. He felt his face heat up with anger. "I'm not going to discuss this with you, Raphael. I have an early meeting tomorrow. Good night." He hung up before his friend could respond. Raphael's reaction had been exactly what Iara had feared. And it would probably be the same reaction of his entire social circle if they found out about his plans. Iara's answer came 3 days later, in an unexpected call. Adrian was in a meeting with investors when Donna Clara discreetly interrupted to say that Iara was on the phone and seemed agitated. Excusing himself from those present, he answered the call in the adjacent office. "Dr. Adrian?" Her voice was different, choked. "Sorry to call like this at your work." "It's okay. Did something happen?" "I wanted to talk about your proposal. Can you meet me this afternoon in Central Park near the lake?" The request surprised him. Iara had never suggested a meeting outside the apartment before. "Sure. At 5. "Perfect. Thank you." When he hung up, Adrian realized he had just cancelled an important video conference with Canadian investors to meet a cleaner at the park. And the strangest thing was, he didn't regret it one bit. Central Park was relatively quiet that Wednesday afternoon. Adrian, dressed casually, a rarity for him, spotted Iara sitting on a bench near the lake. Without her grey uniform, wearing simple jeans and a flowery blouse, she looked like a different person. Younger, lighter. "Hi," he said, coming closer. "How are you?" Iara smiled, but there was something tense in her expression. "Thank you for coming. I needed to get out of that building so we could talk. There, I always feel at home if you know what I mean." Adrian nodded. He understood perfectly what she meant. Physical spaces carried expectations, hierarchies. "I've thought a lot about your proposal," she continued, looking out at the lake where a few ducks were swimming peacefully. "It's too big a dream for someone like me." "What do you mean, someone like you?" Iara let out a long sigh, as if she was organizing thoughts that had been tormenting her for a long time. "Dr. Adrian, I came to the capital when I was 30, without knowing anyone, without having finished high school. I have been working cleaning houses and apartments ever since. I send money every month to my mother and brothers. I play the guitar and compose songs in my little maid's room at the back of Donna Elsa's house, where I work as a cleaner 3 times a week. This is my world, and it is a completely different world from yours." She paused, turning to face him directly. "Why are you doing this? What do you gain by helping me?" The question caught him off guard. What was in it for him? He hadn't thought of it in terms of personal gain. "Your songs touched me, Yara. They made me feel something I haven't felt in a long time. Maybe it's selfish of me wanting more of that." The answer seemed to disarm her distrust a little. "And there's another thing," Adrian continued, surprising himself with the honesty he was about to reveal. "Since Helena left 20 years ago, I've been living in a kind of torpor. I wake up, go to work, come home, go to sleep. I do it all over again the next day. There's no color, no music. Until you came along humming while you were cleaning my apartment." Yara watched him intensely, her brown eyes fixed on him. "What happened to your wife?" "If you don't mind talking about it." No one had asked him that question for years. Everyone in his circle knew the story and carefully avoided the subject. "It was a car accident. We were coming back from a weekend at the coast. A truck lost control in the mountains. Helena was next to me." Adrian paused, feeling the familiar weight of pain. "I survived." "She didn't." "I'm sorry," Yara said, her voice soft, as a caress. You know what's weird? Sometimes I can't remember the sound of her voice anymore, the way she laughed. It's like those details are fading away over time, and that scares me more than anything else." Yara reached out her hand and, in an unexpected gesture, touched Adrian's arm. "I lost someone too. My husband, João. Not all at once like you, but little by little. He worked in construction. One day he fell from a scaffolding. It wasn't high enough to be fatal, but enough to leave him with chronic pain. He started taking medication to cope, then drinking. One thing led to another. When I came to the capital, he stayed in another city. He promised he would stop drinking, that he would take care of himself, but he never did." There was a deep pain in his voice, a pain that Adrian recognized immediately. 5 years ago, I got the call. He had succumbed to cirrhosis. I couldn't to even go to the funeral because I didn't have the money for the ticket. The silence that followed was filled with a mutual understanding that needed no words. Two people scarred by loss, sitting on a park bench on an ordinary Wednesday afternoon. "Music was my salvation," Yara continued after a while. "When the pain became unbearable, I would pick up my guitar and let it out. All those songs you heard were born out of longing, loss, and struggle. They are parts of me that I managed to transform into something, I don't know, maybe something beautiful." "They're beautiful," Adrian said sincerely, "and they deserve to be heard." Yara took a deep breath, as if making a difficult decision. "I accept your help, Dr. Adrian, but on one condition." "Which?" "Please stop calling me Dr. Adrian. My name is just Adrian." A genuine smile lit up her face. "Okay, Adrian." There was something about the way she said his name, no titles, no formalities, that sent a strange warmth through his chest. "And the other condition?" "I said just one." "No, you said one condition, and then you said call me by name. That's not a condition, it's just reasonable. What's the real condition?" Yara laughed, a crystalline sound that echoed through the afternoon air. "You're shrewd. The condition is, I don't want charity. If we're going to do this, I want it to be an investment. When I start making money from my music, if that happens, I'll pay you back with interest." Adrian considered the proposal for a moment. It was important to her to maintain her dignity, her sense of control over her own life. "Deal. Let's make a contract, if you prefer." "It's not necessary. I trust your word." The following days were filled with activity. Adrian arranged a meeting between Yara and Carlo Denin, his friend and music producer. Carlo, initially skeptical, changed his attitude completely after hearing Yara's compositions. "This is authentic, visceral," he said, nodding in approval. "We need to work on these arrangements, give them a professional polish, but the raw material is excellent." Recording sessions were scheduled at the studio for nights and weekends so that Yara could keep up her work. Adrian would come along whenever he could, fascinated by the creative process and the transformation that occurred when Yara stepped into the studio. There she was not a cleaning lady, a woman from the Northeast with no formal education. She was an artist, confident in her gift. One night, while they were recording a particularly emotional ballad called Distances, Adrian watched Yara through the glass in the control room. Her eyes were closed, completely immersed in the music, her voice filling the room with an emotion so pure it was almost palpable. In that moment, he realized something he had perhaps known for some time, but had not admitted to himself. He was falling in love with her. The realization hit him like an electric shock. In love. At 58, after 2 decades of living as an empty shell, it was absurd, irrational, and yet undeniable. By the time the session was over, it was past midnight. Adrian offered to drive her home as he always did. In the car, a comfortable silence settled between them. "What are you thinking about?" Yara asked, noticing his contemplative air. "How life takes unexpected turns." She smiled, that smile he now knew so well. "You say that like it's a bad thing." "No, it's not bad, it's disconcerting." When they arrived at Donna Elsa's house, Adrian parked and, as always, waited until Yara got in safely. But this time, before getting out of the car, she hesitated. "Adrian, can I ask you something?" "Of course." "Why are you really doing all this, and don't give me the talent thing and all that? I know it's true, but I feel like there's more to it." Adrian's heart raced. Was this the moment to be honest, to admit the feelings he had just acknowledged? The fear of rejection, of ridicule, he, a mature man, in love with a woman almost 15 years younger, from a completely different reality than his own, made him back away. "Because you reminded me that I'm still alive, Ayara, and that's something I had forgotten." It wasn't the whole truth, but it was true enough. Yara studied him for a moment, as if trying to decipher what wasn't being said. "Good evening, Adrian." "Thank you for everything." "Good evening, Yara." As he drove back to his empty apartment, Adrian wondered what he was doing. Where was this all going? The album would be released, Yara would become famous, and then what? Would she go on her way, build her career, and he would return to his lonely existence? The thought filled him with a sharp sadness. For the first time in years, he wanted more from life than just surviving the next day. He wanted to share moments, laughter, music. He wanted Yara in his life, not just as a songwriter he helped, but as what exactly? A friend, a companion, a lover. When he got home, he found 3 messages from Raphael on his answering machine. His partner was concerned about his absence from recent meetings and his apparent lack of interest in business. "What's wrong with you, Adrian? Call me urgently." Adrian ignored the messages and went to bed. That night, he dreamed of Yara singing on the terrace of his apartment, the city of the capital at his feet, the stars shining above. In the dream, he approached her, touched her face, and she smiled that smile that lit up everything around her. And then he woke up alone as always, but with a different feeling in his chest. Hope, that's what I felt. After so long I was waiting for something again, longing for tomorrow. The launch of Yara's first single, Distancias, was a small and intimate event held at a concert venue. Carlo Denin had invited a few journalists and influential people from the music industry. Adrian, sitting discreetly at the back of the room, watched with pride as Yara, dressed in a simple but elegant blue dress, sang with her soul exposed. Thior. Audience initially skeptical was gradually won over. At the end of the performance, the applause was warm and genuine. Carlo circulated among the guests, handing out copies of the single and talking about the full album that would be released in 3 months. "You looked amazing," Adrian said when he finally managed to reach Yara after she was approached by several admirers. Her eyes shone in a way he had never seen before, a mixture of joy, accomplishment, and a hint of disbelief. "This is really happening, isn't it? Isn't this just a crazy dream?" Adrian smiled, resisting the urge to touch her. "It's happening, and it's just the beginning." Raphael's voice interrupted the moment. "So, this is the famous Yara Sorel." Adrian turned around, surprised. He hadn't invited his partner to the event. Raphael approached, looking Yara up and down with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. Raphael Vogel, Adrian's longtime partner and friend. Yara politely extended her hand. Nice to meet you, Mr. Vogel. The pleasure is all mine. Adrian has been talking about you a lot. Or rather, he has been not talking about most things. There was a teasing note in his voice. I must say I have been curious to meet the woman who managed to bring him out of his seclusion after so many years. The discomfort was palpable. Adrian tried to intervene. Raphael, I didn't know you were coming. Carlo invited me. We've been friends for years, remember? He turned back to Yara. Your presentation was interesting, authentic, a little too regional for my taste, but I imagine there's an audience for it. Yara maintained her composure, her polite smile not wavering for a second. Northeastern music has a rich tradition that influences my work. I'm glad you found it authentic. Raphael raised an eyebrow, apparently surprised by the articulate response. Well, I must compliment you, Adrian. Your new project looks promising. Before Adrian could respond, Carlo called Yara to meet an important producer. With a nod to the two men, she walked away. Project? Adrian stared at his friend. Is that how you see it? Raphael took a sip of his drink, unfazed. And how else should I view her? Come on, Adrian, I'm not naive. You, a man in your late 60s, suddenly interested in launching a cleaning lady's musical career. It's obvious what's going on here. The insinuation was clear, and it made Adrian's blood boil. You don't understand anything, Raphael. Absolutely. Nothing. Oh, I understand perfectly. I just hope you know what you're doing. These people have a knack for spotting opportunities, if you know what I mean. These people? What people exactly? Raphael shrugged. You know, simple people, with ambitions greater than their means. Adrian felt a wave of disgust. How had he never noticed this side of Raphael before? Or had he always known but ignored it because it was convenient? I suggest you leave, Raphael. Before I say something we'll both regret. As you wish. But when this adventure is over, I'll be there to remind you of this moment. Raphael placed the empty glass on a nearby table. Oh, and don't forget about the investor meeting tomorrow. You know, the one that pays your bills. After Raphael left, Adrian remained, where he was trying to control his anger. Yara's voice brought him back to reality. All good? Yeah, just Raphael being Raphael. She nodded understandingly. He doesn't like me. It's not personal. Raphael doesn't like anything that takes his attention away from business. Yara studied him for a moment. Are you sure that's all? Adrian looked away. How do you explain the deep-rooted prejudices of people like Raphael without sounding condescending or patronizing? It doesn't matter what he thinks, Yara. What matters is your music, your talent, and tonight proved that you have both in abundance. The night ended late with promises of interviews and invitations to perform elsewhere. On the way home from Yara, the mood between them was different, a mix of euphoria for a successful night and unresolved tension due to Raphael's words. I don't think I've ever thanked you properly, Yara said suddenly. No need to thank. Me seeing you shine tonight was reward enough. It's not just about the money, the studio, all that. It's about believing in me when I didn't even fully believe in myself. There was a raw emotion in his voice that made Adrian's heart clench. Yara, the words he wanted to say, that he needed to say, stuck in his throat. Instead, he reached out and lightly touched her hand. Thank you for letting me be a part of this. When they arrived at Donna Elsa's house, Adrian did something he had never done before. He got out of the car and accompanied Yara to the door. On the small porch, under the dim light of a yellowish lamp, they stared at each other in silence for a moment that seemed to stretch on indefinitely. Good evening, Adrian. Good evening, Yara. He leaned in slowly, giving her time to pull back if she wanted, but she didn't. Their lips met in a soft, hesitant kiss, full of unspoken questions and answers not yet found. When they separated, they both seemed equally surprised by what had happened. That complicates things, Yara muttered. Yes, Adrian agreed, but in a good way, I think. With one last smile, she walked away, leaving Adrian standing there, feeling both older than he had ever felt and younger than he had in decades. In the weeks that followed, Adrian and Yara developed their own routine. He continued to attend the company's important meetings, but increasingly delegated responsibilities to his directors. The afternoons were spent accompanying Yara to interviews, photo shoots, and photo shoots. At night, after their commitments, they shared dinner, conversations, and increasingly frequently, kisses and caresses that made it clear that what they felt for each other had long since gone beyond friendship. It was during one of these dinners, at Adrian's apartment, that he finally verbalized what he felt. "I'm in love with you, Yara." The statement, simple and direct, hung in the air between them. Yara looked down at her plate, a shy smile playing on her lips. "I know." "He knows?" "I'm not as naive as I seem, Adrian. A man like you doesn't do what you did for me without a good reason." There was a note of humor in her voice, but also a shadow of doubt that did not escape his notice. "Do you think I did all this because I was interested in you romantically?" Yara stared at him with an intensity that made him uncomfortable. "Wasn't it?" "No, it wasn't like that. Of course I was attracted to you from the beginning, but what motivated me was your music, your talent." He paused, searching for the right words. "Falling in love with you, that came later, gradually, and it took me completely by surprise." The tension in Yara's shoulders seemed to ease a little. "I'm in love with you too, and that scares me." "Why?" "Because it doesn't make sense. The two of us together. We're from completely different worlds." Adrian reached across the table, touching her hand. "So what? Worlds can meet. They can merge. You are a rich, educated, sophisticated man. I am a simple woman who barely finished high school. What will your friends think? What will society say? I don't care what anyone says. I only care about you, about the two of us." It was half true. Of course he cared, to some extent. He had lived in this society, had played by its rules for decades. But for the first time in his life, he was willing to defy those rules for something he truly wanted. Yara sighed. "The world is not that simple, Adrian. People are cruel. They will say that I am with you for your money, that you are with me because I am young and exotic. Let them tell us we know the truth." She smiled, but there was sadness in her eyes. The truth is not always enough. That night, for the first time, Yara did not return to Donna Elsa's house. She stayed with Adrian, sharing her bed, her warmth, her intimacy. It was a moment of total surrender, without barriers or pretensions. When they fell asleep in each other's arms, Adrian felt a peace he had not experienced in 20 years. The morning brought with it not only sunlight, but also the reality that awaited them outside those walls. As they drank coffee on the balcony, watching the capital awaken, the phone rang. It was Carlo with encouraging news. A major radio station had started playing Distances, and the public's response was extraordinary. "That's wonderful," Yara exclaimed, her eyes shining with excitement. Adrian watched her, enchanted by her genuine joy. At that moment the intercom rang. Donna Clara answered and came to inform them with a worried expression. "Dr. Adrian, Mr. Raphael is coming up." He said it's urgent. Adrian and Yara exchanged glances. They hadn't planned how to deal with situations like this. Yara on the penthouse in the morning, clearly having spent the night there. "Do you want me to hide in the room?" she asked, half joking, half serious. "Of course not. We're not doing anything wrong." Still, there was tension in the air when the doorbell rang. Adrian opened the door, finding Raphael with a grave expression. "Adrian, we need to talk about—" He stopped when he saw Yara sitting at the breakfast table, wearing a robe that clearly belonged to Adrian. "Oh, I see I'm interrupting something." "Good." "Morning, Mr. Vogel," Yara greeted, maintaining her composure. Raphael ignored her, turning to Adrian. "Can we talk in private?" "Anything you have to say can be said in front of Yara." Raphael's face hardened. "As you wish. The Canadians are furious about your disappearance from last week's video conference. They are threatening to pull investment in the new project." "Schedule. A new meeting. I'll be there. I've already made an appointment for tomorrow morning, and this time I hope you're—" Distractions won't interfere with business. His gaze slid to Iara, who held his gaze with dignity. "If you'll excuse me," she said, standing up, "I'm going to get dressed." As soon as Iara left, Raphael approached Adrian, speaking in a low, urgent voice. "What do you think you're doing?" "Adrian, sleeping with her? Seriously? My personal life is none of your business, Raphael. The more you comment and share, the more we can bring you stories that touch your heart. Leave your name in the comments, and we may include you in one of our next stories, with a special greeting just for you. It becomes my business when it affects our business. Do you have any idea what will happen when this becomes public? The serious, respectable man, the devoted widower, suddenly involved with a—" "Be careful what you say," Adrian interrupted, his voice dangerously calm. Raphael backed away a little, but didn't give up. "I'm worried about you. This woman comes out of nowhere, and suddenly you're funding her career, sleeping with her. Don't you see what's happening? She's using you." "Raphael, I suggest you leave, now." "Don't be naive, Adrian." She saw a rich, lonely, vulnerable man, and jumped at the chance. Classic. The sound of something falling in the hallway made both men turn around. Iara was there, fully dressed, her face a mask of pain and anger. "Iara," Adrian began, but she raised her hand, interrupting him. "No. I've heard enough." She turned to Raphael. "You don't know me. You don't know anything about me, about my life, about what I've been through. You have no right to judge me." The dignity in his voice was impressive. Raphael, for the first time, seemed speechless. "For you, Adrian," she continued, turning to him, "perhaps your friend is right. Perhaps we are deluding ourselves. Perhaps this will never work out." "Iara, don't say that. Raphael is wrong." "Is he really? Or is he just saying out loud what everyone else will think? What you yourself will end up thinking one day?" Before Adrian could respond, she grabbed her bag and headed for the door. "I need time to think. Please don't call me for a few days." And then she was gone, leaving behind her a thick, suffocating silence. The next 3 days were the longest in Adrian's recent memory. He respected Iara's request and did not seek her out, but every minute without hearing from her was a small torture. He fulfilled his professional obligations like an automaton, including the video conference with the Canadian investors, who ultimately decided to maintain their investment in the new project. Raphael, surprisingly, did not bring up the subject, of Iara again, limiting himself to strictly professional discussions. But Adrian noticed the sidelong glances, the unresolved tension between them. On the morning of the 4th day, Adrian was in his home office when Donna Clara came in with the cordless phone. "It's Mr. Carlo Denon, Doctor," Adrian answered with his heart racing, waiting for news about Iara. "Adrian, you need to turn on the television now. Channel 12. Confused, Adrian grabbed the remote and turned on the TV built into the wall of the office. The channel was showing a morning gossip show. On the screen, a blonde presenter with a mischievous smile spoke directly to the camera, and the unlikely romance between real estate mogul Adrian Mueller and his former cleaner, aspiring singer Iara Sorel. Sources close to the couple say the relationship began when she was still working as a cleaner in his luxury apartment. Could the businessman have found more than just cleaning in the services offered? The insinuation was vulgar and deliberate. Adrian felt his blood run cold. "Who the hell talked to those vultures?" he asked into the phone, his voice shaking, with anger. "I don't know," Carlo replied, "but it doesn't stop there. Just look." On the screen, photos now appeared. Adrian and Iara leaving the studio late at night, the two of them at the restaurant. And, worst of all, a blurry but recognizable image of them kissing on the porch of Donna Elsa's house. "How did they get those pictures?" Adrian muttered, horrified. "That's the least of our worries right now," Carlo said. "Have you tried talking to Iara? She asked for a few days of no contact after that argument with Raphael. Well, I guess that deadline is up. She needs you now." As soon as he hung up, Adrian tried Iara's cell phone. He called several times, but it went to voicemail. In desperation, he called Donna Elsa's house. "Hello?" The old lady's voice sounded suspicious. "Mrs. Elsa, this is Adrian Mueller. I need to speak to Iara urgently. She's not here. She left really early with a suitcase. She said she needed some time away from all this madness. Adrian's heart skipped a beat. Did she say where she was going? No, but I imagined to her. Sister's house in Guarulhos. It's the only place she has to go. Do you have the address? Donna Elsa hesitated. I have it, but I don't know if I should give it. The girl was very upset. Please, Mrs. Elsa, I need to find her. It's important. Something in her voice must have convinced the lady, who ended up giving in and giving the address. Less than an hour later, Adrian parked his car in front of a small townhouse on the outskirts of Guarulhos. The neighborhood was simple but organized, with modest, well-kept houses. Before getting out of the car, he took a deep breath, trying to organize his thoughts. What would he say to her? How would he explain this absurd situation? As he approached the gate, he heard the sound of a guitar coming from the back of the house. He followed the sound, going around the building to a small cement yard, where Iara was sitting on a stool strumming her instrument. She wasn't singing, just playing a melancholic melody that seemed to express everything she was feeling. Adrian stood there watching her for a moment, not daring to interrupt. It was she who finally noticed his presence. How did you find me? He asked without stopping playing. Mrs. Elsa, I tried to call, but you didn't answer. I turned off my cell phone. I didn't want to talk to anyone. Adrian took a few steps forward, still keeping a respectful distance. Did you see the show? Yara nodded, her fingers now still on the guitar strings. Yes, that's why I came here. I didn't want Donna Elsa to have to deal with reporters knocking on her door. Yara, I'm sorry. I don't know how this got out, who spoke to the press. I know who it was, she interrupted, her eyes finally meeting his. Your friend, Raphael. The accusation took him by surprise. Raphael? No, he wouldn't do that. No? He made it very clear what he thinks of me, of our relationship. He probably thought that by making it public you would be embarrassed and break up with me. Adrian wanted to protest, to defend his friend of so many years, but Iara's words made a disturbing sense. Raphael had always been manipulative. He always thought he knew what was best for everyone. And he never hid his contempt for Iara. I'll find out who did this and I'll make sure they pay, Adrian promised, his voice firm. Iara let out a bitter laugh. And what will that change? The damage has already been done. Former cleaning lady wins Millionaire. The comments on the internet are even worse. There was a pain in her voice that broke Adrian's heart. He moved closer, sitting next to her on the narrow bench. Don't pay attention to what they say. They don't know us. They don't know anything about us. But it will affect our lives anyway. Have you thought about what this could do to my career? Singer who slept with her sponsor to get a contract. No one will take my work seriously. It was a valid concern, and Adrian didn't have an immediate answer for it. Instead, he covered her hand with his own. We'll face this together, Yara. I won't let them destroy everything. We've built... She looked at him with a mixture of affection and sadness. Maybe your friend is right, Adrian. Maybe we're deluding ourselves. Our worlds are too different. Don't say that. Don't let them win. It's not about winning or losing. It's reality. You are who you are, I am who I am. We can ignore it for a while, but in the end it always comes back to the surface. Adrian felt a wave of despair. He was losing her, he could feel it. Yara, I love you, that's what matters. Her eyes filled with tears. I love you too, Adrian, but sometimes love isn't enough. At that moment, the back door opened, and a woman who looked a lot like Yara, but younger, appeared. Sorry to interrupt, but there's someone wanting to speak to you two. A music producer, I think. Yara and Adrian exchanged confused looks before following Yara's sister into the house. In the small living room, Carlo Denin was waiting for them, a tablet in his hands. I finally found you two, he said, his normally relaxed face tight with worry. We have a complicated situation on our hands. If you came because of the gossip show, we already know, Yara said, her voice tired. It's not just the show. The story is everywhere, websites, social media, other channels, and... He hesitated, clearly uncomfortable. There were rumors about the album. What rumors? Adrian asked, feeling a tightness in his chest. That you bought space on the radio. That you paid for favorable reviews. That Yara's talent is manufactured. Yara closed her eyes, as if she had received a physical blow. That's exactly what I feared. But there is a silver lining, Carlo continued, trying to sound optimistic. People are curious. The single has seen a 300% increase in downloads. Since yesterday, everyone wants to hear the cleaning lady who won the Millionaire. Great, Yara muttered, her voice dripping with sarcasm. My dream has always been to be a curiosity, not a respected artist. Carlo placed the tablet on the coffee table. We need a strategy. We can turn this negative exposure into something positive. Adrian, who had remained silent until then, finally spoke. As? An interview, the two of you together telling the true story. No filters, no secrets. Humanize your relationship. Show that it's not a fairy tale or a scandal, just two people who met in unusual circumstances and fell in love. Yara let out a tired sigh. I don't know if I want to expose my personal life any further. I understand, Carlo said, but consider this: if you don't tell your story, others will tell it for you, and it will rarely be the true version. There was wisdom in those words. Adrian looked at Yara, seeking her approval. What do you think? She pondered for a moment, her face reflecting the inner conflict. Okay, but on one condition: no sensationalist television. I want something respectful, that also focuses on the music, not just the romance. Carlo smiled, visibly relieved. I know the perfect person. Laura Mertens from Revista Cultural, a serious, respected journalist. I can schedule an appointment for tomorrow. While Carlo made some calls in the backyard, Adrian and Yara remained in the living room, a tense silence between them. Are you sure you want to do this? He asked finally. Expose our lives like this? Yara shrugged, a gesture of resignation. As Carlo said, if we don't tell our story, others will. At least this way we have some control. Adrian reached out, touching her face gently. I'm sorry about all this. I never meant to complicate your life. A small smile, the first since arriving, appeared on Yara's lips. My life has always been complicated, Adrian. It's just that the type of complication has changed. That afternoon, the three of them hatched a plan. The interview would take place at Adrian's penthouse the following day. Carlo would take care of the preparation, making sure the journalist understood the tone they wanted for the conversation. Meanwhile, Adrian would hire a press agent to handle the requests that kept coming in. When Carlo finally said goodbye, it was almost night. Adrian and Yara were left alone on the small front porch of the house. Are you staying here tonight? He asked, unsure of where they stood in their relationship. Yes, I need this time with my sister. Tomorrow we'll meet at your apartment for the interview. Adrian nodded, respecting her decision, but feeling an emptiness in his chest. Yara, whatever the outcome of all this, I want you to know that I never regretted meeting you, helping you, falling in love with you. These were the best months of my life in a long, long time. Her eyes shone with unshed tears. For me too, Adrian, no matter what happens. There was a finality in those words that frightened him, as if she had already decided there was no future for them. On the way home, Adrian made a decision. He would not lose Yara because of other people's prejudices. He would not let gossip and rumors destroy what they had built. And above all, he would find out who had leaked the story to the press. His first stop was the developer's office. Even though it was night, he knew he would find Raphael there. His partner always worked late when there were problems to solve, and there were definitely problems now. As expected, the light in Raphael's office was on. Without knocking, Adrian opened the door. Raphael looked up from the papers he was analyzing, showing no surprise. I've been expecting your visit, he said, leaning back in his chair. Was it you who spoke to the press? Raphael did not answer immediately. He watched Adrian for a moment, as if weighing how much of the truth it would be prudent to reveal. What if I was? I did it for your own good, to give you a reality check before you completely ruined your reputation. The confirmation, although expected, hit Adrian like a punch in the stomach. 25 years of friendship and partnership reduced to this. You had no right. I had every right to, as your friend and partner. What do you think our investors are thinking now? What are our customers saying? That you've gone crazy, that you're having a late-onset midlife crisis. I don't care what they think. Of course you should. We built this empire together, Adrian. I'm not going to stand by and watch you throw it all away because of a fling. Be careful what you say, Adrian interrupted, his voice dangerously calm. Choose your next words very carefully, Raphael. The two men stared at each other in tense silence, decades of friendship and trust crumbling between them. The meeting with Raphael ended in a definitive rupture. After 25 years, Adrian announced that he would buy his partner's share in the development company or sell his own, whichever Raphael preferred. The friendship was irretrievably broken. The man he had known for so long, whom he trusted, had deliberately tried to destroy something precious in his life. "You're going to regret this," were Raphael's last words before Adrian left the office. Meetis. The next morning, Adrian's penthouse had been transformed. Carlo had brought a small team to set up the space for the interview. The reporter, Laura Mertens, was a middle-aged woman with sharp eyes and an air of professional seriousness that inspired confidence. "I want to thank you for choosing our magazine to tell your story," she said as she tested the recorder. "I promise a respectful and honest approach." Adrian nodded tensely. Yara hadn't arrived yet, and he was beginning to fear that she had changed her mind. When the doorbell finally rang, he felt immense relief. But the relief was short-lived. One look at Yara's face was enough to tell that something was wrong. Her eyes were swollen, as if she had been crying all night. "Can we talk privately before the interview?" she asked, her voice low. Adrian led her to his office, closing the door behind them. Yara remained standing, as if she didn't want to feel comfortable there. "What happened?" he asked, his heart racing with apprehension. "I've been thinking all night, Adrian. About us, about all of this." She gestured vaguely, as if taking in the whole situation. "And I've come to a conclusion." The tone of her voice made Adrian's stomach sink. "What conclusion?" "I can't go on like this. I don't want to be known as the cleaning lady who won the Millionaire. I don't want my music to be overshadowed by gossip about my personal life." "The interview will help clear everything up," Adrian argued, desperation growing in his voice. "People will understand." Yara smiled sadly. "Do you really believe that? People will see and hear what they want to hear. To most, I will always be the opportunist who used other talents to get a contract. Don't say that. Your talent is real, undeniable. For you, for Carlo, for anyone who really listened to my songs carefully, yes. But for the general public? For the industry? I will always be the woman who slept with the sponsor." There was a resolve in her voice that terrified Adrian. She had already made her decision. "What are you saying exactly?" Yara took a deep breath, as if gathering courage for a difficult moment. "I'm saying I need to go my own way, Adrian. I need to prove myself on my own without your shadow over me." The words hit Adrian like a physical blow. "Are you breaking up with me?" "I'm doing what's necessary for me, for my career, and ultimately for you too." "Don't decide what's best for me," he snapped, his voice harsher than he intended. "I'm perfectly capable of making my own choices. Even when those choices cost you your reputation, your friends, your business. None of that matters compared to you." Yara approached, touching his face tenderly. "That's exactly why I need to go. I can't be responsible for everything you're missing." "I'm not missing anything that really matters." "Now you say that, but a year from now, 5 years, when the disapproving looks continue, when the nasty comments don't stop, eventually you'll blame me for this." Adrian held her hands, a growing desperation taking hold of him. "I would never do that. I love you, Yara. I love you too. That's why I need to do this, for both of us." Before he could argue further, she pulled away, wiping away tears that were beginning to fall. "We will do the interview. We will tell our story. But at the end, we will announce that we have decided to go our separate ways, maintaining only a professional relationship." "Yara, please. My decision is made, Adrian. Don't make this any harder than it already is." The interview was an ordeal. They both told how they met, how music brought them together, how mutual respect turned into something deeper. They talked about prejudices, about the social barriers that made their relationship complicated in the eyes of others. Yara talked about her origins, about her postponed dreams, about how music has always been her refuge. Adrian talked about his loss, about the years of isolation, about how Iara brought color back into his life. And then, as agreed, Iara announced that they had decided to go their separate ways romantically, maintaining only their professional partnership. Adrian would continue to support her career, but there would no longer be a romantic relationship. When the journalist finally left, taking with her the story that would be published in the next edition of the magazine, Adrian and Iara were left alone on the roof. "You were brilliant," he said, his voice low. "You spoke so eloquently, so sincerely." "I only told the truth," she replied, avoiding his gaze. "Except for the final part," Iara sighed. "That's also true, Adrian. It's just a painful truth." A heavy silence settled between them. There was so much to say, and at the same time, nothing more to say. "What are you going to do now?" he asked finally. "I'm going to move to a small apartment that I rented. I'm going to focus on the album, on the performances. I'm going to move on with my life. Without me." It wasn't a question, but a painful realization. Iara just nodded, unable to verbalize the confirmation. "What about us?" Adrian insisted. "What do we feel for each other?" "Some loves are not meant to last, Adrian. They are like comets, bright, intense, but passing by." The words, poetic and sad, were so typical of her. Even in a moment of farewell, Iara composed verses with her soul. "I don't believe it," he replied. "What we have is real, it's deep, it's not a passing fancy." "I never said it was, but sometimes love isn't enough to overcome all obstacles." Adrian felt anger rising inside him. Anger at injustice, at people's narrow-mindedness, at a world that could not see beyond appearances and social conventions. "So that's it? Are we going to let other people's prejudices define our destiny?" "It's not just about other people, Adrian. It's about me, who I am, who I want to be. I need to prove myself. I need to know that I can do it." There was a determination in her voice that he knew well. It was the same determination that had attracted him to her in the first place, the inner strength that had kept her fighting, despite all the hardships. "What if I wait?" he asked, a last thread of hope in his voice. "What if I'm here when you've proven what you need to prove?" A small smile appeared on Iara's lips. "I don't ask that of you, Adrian. It wouldn't be fair. I'm not asking for permission. I'm telling you what I intend to do." She studied him for a moment, her eyes bright with unshed tears. "You're a stubborn man, you know that. I learned from a certain composer from the Northeast." The comment drew a brief laugh from her, a moment of lightness in the midst of the farewell. "Can I ask you something before I go?" Iara asked. "Anything." "Play the piano for me. I've never heard you play, though I know there's a grand piano in that room you always keep closed." The request surprised him. Adrian had not played for 20 years. The piano belonged to Helena, who was the real musician among them. After her departure, he closed the room and never entered it again. "I haven't played since, well, a long time. Please, it would mean a lot to me." How could I deny her anything, especially now? Adrian nodded and led Iara into the room that had remained closed for so long. The smell of old furniture and dusty sheet music greeted them. The Steinway grand piano stood in the center of the room, silent and imposing like a monument. Adrian sat down on the bench, the familiar weight beneath his fingers as he touched the keys. He chose a simple piece, something he was sure he could play even after all this time. Chopin's Prelude No. 1. The notes flowed hesitantly at first, then more confidently. It wasn't perfect, but there was feeling in it. When he finished, he noticed that Iara was crying silently. "What's wrong?" he asked, worried. "Nothing," she said, wiping away her tears. "I just realized one more thing we have in common. You also put your music away because of the pain." The observation struck him deeply. It was true. Just as Iara had transformed her pain into music, he had done the opposite. He had silenced the music because of the pain. "Maybe it's time we change that," he said. "You, sharing your compositions with the world. Me, getting back to playing." "I'd like that," she replied with a soft smile. When it was finally time for Iara to leave, Adrian walked her to the door. There were no passionate kisses or eternal promises, just a long embrace and the certainty that, no matter what the future held, their lives had been forever changed by the meeting of their souls. "It's not goodbye," she said before stepping into the elevator. "It's see you later." Adrian wanted to believe it. He needed to believe it. In the days following Iara's departure, Adrian plunged into a hectic work routine. Negotiating Raphael's exit from the partnership was complex and required his full attention. At the same time, he continued to support Iara's career, but remained behind the scenes, respecting her desire for independence. The interview in Revista Cultural had the desired effect. Adrian and Iara's honest and moving story won many hearts. The online comments section was filled with messages of support from people who could relate to their struggle against prejudice and social barriers. The announcement of the end of their relationship was received with sadness by many readers, who expressed hope that they would eventually find a way back to each other. Most importantly, Iara's music began to be judged on its own merits. Serious music critics analyzed her compositions, highlighting their originality, emotional depth, and undeniable talent. The single Distances entered the charts, and other radio stations began to play it. One Saturday afternoon, while Adrian was absent-mindedly leafing through the newspaper on his terrace, he came across a small note in the cultural section. Iara Sorel to perform at a benefit concert at a municipal school on the outskirts of town. According to the article, Iara was organizing a project to bring musical education to children from underprivileged communities. The news struck a deep chord in Adrian. It was so typical of her, using her talent and newfound visibility to help others. Without thinking much, she picked up the phone and called Carlo. "Carlo, it's Adrian. I need you to help me with an idea." "What idea?" asked the producer, curious. "A music school for children without access to music education, a place where they can learn, create, dream." There was a moment of silence on the other end of the line. "Does this have anything to do with Iara's charity performance?" "Partly, but it's something I've been thinking about for a while. I want to do something meaningful, something that really matters." "It sounds like an ambitious project," commented Carlo. "I have the resources. What I need is guidance, contacts in the music industry, people who understand education." "I can help with that. I know several musicians who are also educators." "Great. I want to get started as soon as possible." In the months that followed, Adrian channeled all his energy and resources into the music school project. He found a suitable plot of land in the east zone of the capital, in an area lacking in cultural facilities. He hired architects to design a modern and functional space with classrooms, recording studios, and an auditorium. He recruited renowned teachers who bought into the idea of bringing quality music education to those who would normally not have access to it. The whole process was therapeutic for Adrian. It gave him a purpose, a direction, and secretly he hoped that the project would eventually reconnect him with Iara, not in a manipulative or self-serving way, but as a way to show her that he understood her passion for transforming lives through music. At the same time, Adrian took up the piano again. He hired a private teacher and dedicated an hour a day to practicing. He had no illusions about becoming a great pianist. That opportunity had long since passed, but he found peace in the melodies that flowed from his fingers again. 6 months after Iara's departure, the school's physical structure was almost complete. Adrian visited the construction site daily, supervising every detail. It was during one of these visits that his cell phone rang. It was Carlo. "Adrian, you need to come to the studio now. Iara is here. She just recorded a new song. You need to hear it." Adrian's heart raced. In the past few months, his contact with Iara had been minimal, limited to professional matters related to the album. "Does she know you're calling me?" Actually, she was the one who asked. She said she wants your opinion before anyone else's. Adrian arrived at the studio in record time. Iara was waiting for him in the control room, a shy smile on her lips. She looked different. Her hair was shorter, her clothes were more elegant, and she had a new confidence in her posture. But her eyes were the same, those eyes that had captured his soul from the first moment. "Hi," she said simply. "Hi," he replied, suddenly feeling awkward like a teenager facing his first love. "Thanks for coming. I've written something new, and, well, I'd like you to be the first to hear it." Carlo discreetly left the room, leaving them alone. Yara sat at the control table and pressed the playback button. The song began softly, just voice and guitar. It spoke of rebirth, of new beginnings, of learning that only distance can provide. The chorus, emotional and direct, said, "Sometimes we need to leave to understand that our true destiny was always to stay." As the last note faded, Adrian remained silent, processing what he had just heard. The song was clearly about them, about the months apart, about the lessons learned. "What did you think?" Yara asked, her voice betraying nervousness. "It's beautiful," he replied honestly. "Your best composition yet." A relieved smile lit her face. "Thank you. It means a lot coming from you." An expectant silence hung between them, full of unspoken questions and unexpressed hopes. "I heard about your project," Yara said finally. "The music school for underprivileged children. Did Carlo tell you?" "I actually read about it in the paper. I was impressed. It's an amazing project, Adrian." There was a genuine admiration in her voice that warmed his heart. "Would you like to visit sometime?" he invited, trying to keep his tone casual. "It's almost ready." "I would like to." Another silence, this time more comfortable, as if they were both readapting to each other's presence. "Adrian," Yara began, her voice soft but determined, "these months apart have made me realize many things. About myself, about you, about us." "What things?" he asked, his heart racing. "That we were right and wrong at the same time. Right about what we felt for each other. It was real, deep, true, but wrong in thinking we couldn't overcome the obstacles together." Her words lit a flame of hope in Adrian's chest. "What are you saying exactly?" Yara smiled, that smile he knew so well, that lit up not only her face but the entire environment around her. "I'm saying that I missed you, that I learned that I can be strong on my own, but that I prefer to be strong with you. I'm saying that if you still want to, I'd like to try again. Not as the cleaning lady and the millionaire, not as the protégé and the protector, but as partners, equals." 3 years have passed since that day in the studio. The Novos Accordes music school, founded by Adrian and Yara, celebrated its second anniversary with a special performance by its students at the capital's Municipal Theatre. The event, which was widely publicized, had attracted cultural figures, business people, politicians, and most importantly, proud families of the children and teenagers who would take the stage. Behind the scenes, Adrian adjusted the bow of a boy of about 10 who was holding a violin reverently. "Nervous, Miguel?" he asked, smiling to reassure the boy. "A little, Mr. Adrian. What if I make a mistake?" "Everyone makes mistakes, Miguel. It's part of learning. The important thing is to keep playing even after making a mistake." The lesson, simple but profound, reflected much of what Adrian had learned in recent years. Mistakes happen. Life goes on. The important thing is not to give up. On the other side of the dressing room, Yara was guiding a group of girls who would sing in the choir. She was wearing an elegant dark green dress, her hair tied in an elaborate bun. Every now and then her eyes would meet Adrian's, and a knowing smile would be exchanged between them. The decision to restart their relationship 3 years ago had not been easy. They both carried scars, fears, and insecurities. But they were determined to build something new, something based on equality and mutual respect. The idea for the school came naturally, the result of Yara's passion for music education and Adrian's desire to create a meaningful legacy. Located in a poor area in the east zone of the capital, the institution provided free education to 200 children and teenagers, offering lessons in various instruments, music theory, singing, and composition. For Adrian, the project represented a complete transformation in his life. After years dedicated to building buildings and accumulating wealth, he now dedicated himself to building dreams and distributing opportunities. The development company continued to operate, but under new management, he retained only a minority stake and a seat on the board. For Yara, school was the realization of a dream she didn't even know she had. Her musical career had taken off. Her album Distancias had received positive reviews and gained a loyal following, but she had discovered an equally strong calling in education. Seeing the sparkle in a child's eyes as they mastered their first chord was as rewarding as hearing applause at a concert. 5 minutes until we start, the stage manager announced, interrupting Adrian's thoughts. The children were arranged in a line, instruments in hand, faces tense with concentration and excitement. Ayara approached Adrian, intertwining her fingers with his. "Look at them," he whispered. "So nervous, so determined. Remember our first performance together?" Adrian smiled, remembering the benefit they had organized to raise initial funds for the school. At the time, he had surprised everyone, especially Iara, by sitting down at the piano to accompany her in a special version of Distances. "How could I forget? My hands were shaking so much I thought I couldn't play." But he did it. And it was beautiful. The memory of that moment, the music flowing between them creating an almost tangible connection, still moved him. It had been a milestone in their journey of rapprochement, confirmation that together they were stronger, more complete. A commotion at the entrance to the theatre interrupted the conversation. Adrian saw Carlo Denin approaching, accompanied by an elegant woman he recognized immediately, Regina Alves, Minister of Culture. "She came," Yara murmured, surprised. "I thought she would send a representative." "It seems our project caught the right attention," Adrian replied, squeezing her hand lightly. Carlo made the formal introductions, although they were unnecessary. The minister was well acquainted with the work of the Escola Novos Accordis. "It's a pleasure to finally meet you in person," Regina said. "What you have built here is extraordinary, a model we would like to replicate in other regions of the country." "It would be wonderful," Yara replied, her eyes shining with the possibility. "There is so much talent hidden away for lack of opportunities." "That's exactly what I would like to talk about after the presentation. We have a national expansion project for music schools, and we would like Novos Accordis to be our pilot partner." Before they could discuss further details, the bell rang, indicating that it was time for everyone to take their seats. The minister headed to the reserved box, while Carlo, with a proud smile, wished her good luck and headed to the audience. Adrian and Iara remained backstage, ready to assist if needed. The lights went out, an expectant silence filled the theatre, and then magically the first notes began to sound. Seeing those children, many of whom would never have had contact with musical instruments if it weren't for school, playing on the stage of the municipal theatre, was an overwhelming experience. Adrian felt a lump in his throat, an emotion that was almost suffocating. "Are you crying?" Yara whispered, noticing his moist eyes. "I guess so," he admitted unabashedly. "It's just, look at them. Look what we've built together." She squeezed his hand, understanding perfectly. It wasn't just musical notes that echoed through the theatre that night. It was the sound of transformation, of hope, of possibility. Each child on stage carried a story of overcoming. Each melody represented a future that was opening up. The performance went perfectly. The repertoire, a mix of classics and local compositions, included pieces specially arranged for the students' technical level. Even so, the performance was impressive, the result of months of dedication and intensive practice. The highlight of the evening was the performance of Miguel, the boy whom Adrian had adjusted the bow for before the show. At 10 years old, he demonstrated an extraordinary talent for the violin, especially considering that he had only had his first contact with the instrument a year earlier. His rendition of a simplified adaptation of Tico Tico no Fuba drew enthusiastic applause from the audience. At the end, when all the children returned to the stage to give their thanks, the ovation was thunderous. Parents cried, teachers smiled. Proudly and distinguished guests gave a standing ovation. Adrian and Iara were called to the stage for a special thank you, and the school principal gave them a bouquet of flowers. "I'd like to say a few words," Adrian asked emotionally. With a nod from the director, he approached the microphone. 3 years ago, if someone had told me that I would be here today, surrounded by these talented children, sharing this moment with the woman I love, I probably wouldn't have believed them. His voice shook slightly. I spent so much of my life building buildings, accumulating wealth, not realizing that there was a void inside me that none of that could fill. Adrian paused, searching the crowd for Iara's gaze. It took an extraordinary woman to come into my life, bringing music, color, and purpose, for me to understand the true meaning of success. It is not the buildings we build, but the lives we touch. It is not the riches we accumulate, but the opportunities we create for others. A murmur of approval ran through the audience. Adrian continued. This school is not just about music, it's about transformation. It's about showing each of these children that their dreams matter, that their talents have value, that their future can be different than the one circumstances seem to have determined for them. Turning to the students lined up on the stage, he smiled. You are our greatest achievement. Every note you play, every melody you create is a testament to the fact that art can change lives. Never forget that. When he finished speaking, Iara approached, her eyes shining with unshed tears. Without words, she hugged him tightly, a gesture that said everything that could not be expressed in words. The reception after the concert was held in the grand hall of the theatre. As they circulated among the guests, receiving greetings and discussing possible partnerships, Adrian noticed a familiar face approaching. It was Raphael. They hadn't seen each other since the partnership had dissolved 3 years ago. Time had been kind to his former friend. He was still elegant, successful, and now running his own real estate development company. Adrian, Raphael greeted, extending his hand. Impressive presentation. There was a tension in the air, memories, of harsh words exchanged, of a friendship broken under bitter circumstances. But there was something else too, a tacit acknowledgement that time had passed, that they had both moved on. Thank you for coming, Raphael, Adrian replied, shaking the offered hand. It means a lot. I couldn't miss it. I've heard so much about this project. He hesitated as if choosing his next words carefully. You were right, after all, about everything. The admission, simple but profound, took Adrian by surprise. Raphael had never been a man to admit mistakes. It's not about being right or wrong, he replied gently. It's just about following your heart, even when the path seems impossible. Raphael nodded, a small smile on his lips. You look happy. I'm happy, more than I ever thought possible. At that moment, Iara approached, her smile faltering slightly as she recognized Raphael, but Adrian welcomed her with an arm around her waist, a protective and loving gesture. Iara, do you remember Raphael? Of course, she replied, polite, but reserved. Thank you for honoring our students. It was my pleasure, Raphael said, and to both their surprise he sounded sincere. You've built something extraordinary here. The conversation continued for a few minutes, a polite exchange between adults who had overcome old resentments. When Raphael walked away to greet other acquaintances, Iara looked at Adrian with a puzzled expression. That was unexpected. People change, he replied simply. We all change. The evening wore on, and gradually the guests began to say their goodbyes. The children, exhausted but radiant after their big night, were taken home by proud parents. The school staff began to organize the instruments and sheet music in preparation for their return. In the midst of the commotion, Adrian pulled Iara to a quiet corner of the room. I have something for you, he said, taking a small box from his jacket pocket. Her eyes widened. Adrian, it's not what you think, he smiled, opening the box to reveal a delicate gold chain with a treble clef-shaped pendant studded with tiny diamonds. Or maybe it is, in a way. Carefully, he removed the necklace and placed it around her neck. This is a symbol of the music you brought back into my life, of the harmony we created together, of the future we still have ahead of us. Iara touched the pendant, moved. It's beautiful. There's something else, Adrian continued, his voice suddenly serious. Something I've been thinking about for some time. From an inside pocket, he took out an envelope and handed it to her. Intrigued, Iara opened it, revealing official documents. What is that? The deed to the school. I put it in your name too. We are officially equal partners now in every way. The implications of that gesture were not lost on Yara. It was not just a legal or financial issue. It was a declaration of total trust, of absolute commitment to the vision they shared. Adrian, I don't know what to say. Say that we will continue to build this together, that we will continue to transform lives through music, that this is just the beginning of our journey. Yara hugged him tightly, not caring about the few people still left in the room. Yes to all of that, and more. When they left the theatre, the São Paulo night greeted them with a gentle breeze and a starry sky, a rarity in the polluted metropolis. Hand in hand they walked to the car, discussing plans for the expansion of the school, for new partnerships, for a future that was opening up full of possibilities. "Do you know what I was thinking?" Yara commented as they got into the vehicle. What? How life takes turns. 4 years ago I was cleaning your apartment and humming softly, thinking no one could hear. Today we are here after a performance at the Municipal Theatre, discussing a partnership with the Ministry of Culture. Adrian smiled, starting the car. Life doesn't just take turns, it constantly surprises us. Who would have thought that? A cleaning lady who hummed while she worked would be the person who would teach me the true meaning of wealth? And who would have thought that a lonely and bitter businessman would be the man who would show me that dreams can indeed come? True, the walk back home, the penthouse they now shared, was made in comfortable silence, each lost in their own thoughts, but connected by everything they had built together. When they arrived, Adrian suggested a glass of wine on the terrace to celebrate the success of the evening. Sitting side by side, looking out over the city that never sleeps, they recalled the crucial moments of their journey. The first coffee they shared, the first time he heard her compositions, the kiss on the porch of Donna Elsa's house, the painful separation, the reunion in the studio, the founding of the school. "I think we should write a song about all this," Adrian suggested. "Our story deserves to be immortalized in song." Yara smiled, that luminous smile that still made his heart race. "Actually, I've already started composing something. I've been waiting for the right moment to show you." She got up and went to get her guitar, which always accompanied her. Sitting down again, she began to strum softly, her voice filling the night with a new yet strangely familiar melody. The song spoke of two different worlds meeting, of barriers being broken, of a love that transcends expectations and conventions. It was their story, transformed into poetry and music, a testament to the fact that the improbable sometimes becomes reality. As the last note faded into the night air, Adrian kissed her softly. "Perfect, like everything you create." "It's not just my creation," Yara replied. "It's our story. We wrote it together, note by note, day after day." That night, as they lay in each other's arms, Adrian reflected on the extraordinary journey that had brought them here. From a rich but empty man, trapped in his painful past, he had become someone with purpose, with joy, with love. And it all began with a soft melody, hummed by a woman who was cleaning her apartment, believing that no one was listening to her. But he had listened, and that simple song had changed everything. Have you signed up yet? Do it now and tell us which city you're following us from.